Hey y'all, welcome to the Grumpy Sound Guy YouTube channel. I am your host, J.R. Everhart, the Grumpy Sound Guy himself. This week on our Reels and Shorts and TikTok videos, we've just kind of been talking about a whole laundry list of things that kind of jerk my chain and piss me off. We'll put it that way. But today I kind of wanted to tell some stories that might communicate to you guys why it is that us sound guys can be so grumpy and why we get so frustrated with things. I say these things with a smile on my face, but they were not fun to walk through when we had to walk through the scenarios and the situations. So it definitely is something we kind of take note on. The first thing I want to talk about is getting paid in this business. Getting paid in this business is a tricky sort of situation. We don't have a scenario where we can repossess our services. When the show is over, the show is over. Staff has been paid. The truck rental fees have been paid. Any kind of supplemental insurance we may have needed for that specific gig has already been paid. All the gear maintenance that it took to prepare for that gig has been paid. So we're rolling into the situation with some overhead. And I have had and seen firsthand. I'm going to tell you this one story. I could tell you a bunch of stories about this, but I'm going to tell you this one story about this. I did a national show. Thank God I was only working kind of just moonlighting for a regional production company that I used to work for more regularly. But they call me every now and then when there's a show in my neighborhood and that sort of thing to kind of keep me in the networking group of what it is that they do. They needed a hand with backline. This company does everything. In this specific gig, they were only being hired for backline. They needed a local hand, so I was free that day. I believe it was in the wintertime, which I'm usually pretty flexible in the wintertime because things kind of slow down in the winter. So we went and did the show. It was one of my competitors who I'm a friend with who actually did the production for the show, Sound and Lights. And it was a big national event with 3 or 4 regional, local openers by a promoter who was from out of town. This promoter went to the company I was working for and made a big deal about meeting them, and it took a tour of their warehouse and blah blah blah, and man, we're going to do a whole bunch of more shows in your area. We're looking forward to doing more work with you as time goes on. Here's a check for the backline stuff. See you guys in 2 days at the show. So that was on a Wednesday or Thursday or something that went down. Those guys called me. I was part of that staff that was prepaid. So I'm one of the lucky guys in this scenario. But the local production company that was doing sound and lighting, they had a similar experience with this promoter. And the promoter kind of made a big deal of everything. Did the same thing with the venue. He was renting the venue to host the event. Wrote checks to everybody. Apparently, all those checks were worthless. We went to the show, and I know that the local vendor had even, the local production company that did sound and lighting, I know he had even rented a bunch of equipment for this gig because he was kind of in the market to buy a new line array system and wanted to check out a new VT series that JBL has out now. It's an amazing system. I'm distracted by how good this stuff actually sounded. But so I know he had a bunch of overhead in that as well. Pretty sure his numbers were in the neighborhood of 12 or 14 grand for what he was what he sold his services to this promoter for. I have no idea what the company I was working for charging for backline. If I had to guess, I don't know, $1,000, $1,200 or something like that, $2,000. I really don't know. what backline goes for because I'm not in that business. They paid me up front because that's kind of how I do business. And then they were supposed to give the venue a portion of ticket sales. And it was in the rider for the National that they had to provide people to work their merch table, which never makes any sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but that never makes any sense to me why you would put strangers in charge of the band's money. Like, you don't have a roadie that can't go out there and work the merch table or whatever, I don't know. Nevertheless, all the checks bounced. Nobody got paid, except for those of us that were staff that got paid in advance. Everybody's was just kind of left holding the ball. This was a major show. It was horrible. And the promoter even kept the band's merch money. Yeah. I was in the parking lot during the loadout. We, of course, backline doesn't take as long to tear down as everything else. So we were the first ones out the door. And we were out there just buttoning up the truck and got everything loaded up. And he was out there yelling and screaming on the phone with the band's tour manager about, whatever. He didn't think ticket sales were as strong as they were going to be. The guy that fronts the national band is problematic and has a history of being problematic, and there were problems at this show because of that. So he was using those as excuses as well. Basically trying to tell the guy, go screw yourself, I'm keeping your merch money because you guys did not live up to all the stuff that you had sold us to. There's a whole bunch of bull butter wrapped up in that conversation because those guys, those guys are the ones that take all the risk. The promoters are the ones that take all the risk. They are the ones that are going to live by that saying, no risk and no reward. So when there is a reward, they cash in big time. When the event is a success, everyone that had worked for them all worked for flat rates, production included, backline included. We give them flat rate pricing. This is what it's going to take to do the gig. You pay us this, we're happy. And it's the promoter who takes all the risk because with that risk comes the potential for enormous amounts of money to be made. I have seen promoters make hundreds of thousands of dollars on shows. I've seen promoters make a modest profit of, 10 or 20 grand, depending on the size of the show, how much went into it, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So that leads me to my next point, which is many times I'm contacted and I'm asked to take part of that risk on. I'll get a promoter who will call me and say, hey man, this is our first year doing this festival. We really want to, put our best foot forward. Can you kind of work with us, with this and everything else? And my response is, I would rather give you a flat rate discount, which if you're somebody who's not going to be a bunch of drama, because there's a drama fee in everything that I contract out. If you're going to be a bunch of drama, there's like a 20% price hike right there. If you're somebody who isn't going to be a pain in my rear end, then I'm going to be more motivated to give you a price break on a flat rate. I am never going to assume any part of the risk because if this thing is a massive success, I only make what I agreed on my flat rate. And what will jerk my chain more than anything else, guys, is when someone comes to me and pour mouths about they don't have a budget, they don't have this, they don't have that, let's just get it going, blah, 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 that sort of thing. I'd be a super nice guy, and I try to, give them a break on price, and then they just absolutely kill in profit on the event. And when it's all done and over with, they're not coming back to me saying, hey, I know that you typically do this for, 12 grand. You did it for 9,500 for us. Here's another $2,500 because we did really, really well. And because you took part of the risk with us, we're willing to give you what you typically would make. That has never once ever happened. Not once. What happens is I do the work for a discounted rate. They make tens of thousands of dollars sometimes. They never come back to the table wanting to give me any sort of tip or a bonus because I worked with them and I kind of assumed part of the risk. So what happened? Well, I just decided to stop doing that. I did. Changed all my contracts, so now it's usually 50% down, and then the other 50% 5 business days before the event if you're paying by check. That way I have time to make sure your check clears in the bank before I show up. Because if that check doesn't clear, I'm not showing up. Or the only other option is I will take a cash payment at load-in. Before we unlock the truck and unload anything, I need an envelope full of cash with the remaining amount that you owe me. Now, I got that from how national band riders are put together. Because that's exactly how they're put together. Because they're in the same boat that I'm in. They're not in the business of taking a risk. They are whoever they are, Skid Row, or they're Van Halen, or they're whoever the national act is, fill in the blank. They've been in the business long enough to know that, hey, we don't sell out every single place we play. So we're not making any guarantees. Here's a track record of what we've done. Here's a track record of how our band has drawn and how we've made people money, in some cases for decades. But we make no guarantees as to what's going to happen in your venue at your event, because a lot of that falls on the promoter's shoulders of being able to advertise it correctly, do all the marketing stuff right, get staffing in place, be in a venue people want to go to. All those things matter, and those are things that are completely out of control of the band. And guess what? They're completely out of control for me too. I don't know. I can't guarantee people are going to come to your event. So why should I take any risk in doing this? Because if it ends up being gangbusters, you're the guy that's going to laugh all the way to the bank. Meanwhile, I'm kind of got a sour taste in my mouth because I did the gig for less than what I was comfortable with, trying to help you out, trying to be a nice guy, and you didn't return the favor. Now, depending on how the event goes, depending on how smooth and organized it is greatly going to dictate whether or not I'm going to work with these people again. So if you're going to work, and I get clients that literally get mad at me. I've lost business over this, but I don't care, because I would rather lose business than to lose 100% of profit and be in the hole for all the overhead I had to pay before I got to the event. One more quick story. Was working with a very good friend of mine at an event last year, and they were supposed to pay him during load-in. He was being a super nice guy. We were really focused on getting the stage up. He was using my stage. It was his audio. I don't think there was much in the way of lighting that day at that event, but if there was, it was just basic wash lighting. And, we got the first band going, and then he's looking at the promoter like, hey, man, I should have already gotten a check or something from you. And he had gotten nothing. He had to stop the show. And I don't blame him. Now, I had already been paid because, as I mentioned, my contract says I need to be paid 5 days before the event, or cash at load-in, which I'd really rather have the paper trail of the 5 days before. That way we've got proof of everything, and, my accountant kind of likes that a little better, but if push comes to shove, I will take cash at a load-in. So I was already paid for this exact reason. Now, these guys come over and give him, 3 or 4 different credit cards to try to get him as much of the money that he needs. Thankfully, he's a smart businessman like myself and accepts credit cards on site. But I think they were still short $300 or $400, and they were another 2 or 3 weeks getting him that last $300 or $400. Now, he got his money. I'm not saying the guy didn't. I ain't saying these people were horrible people. No one showed up for this event. I don't know why. I don't know what was in the air or was in the water that day and why people didn't show up, but no one showed up at the event. So there's a situation where if he would have got screwed and I was waiting until after the gig to get paid, guess what? I would have got screwed. We can't repossess our services. Once the show is over, once the gear is set, it's set. We're already, going down the runway, getting airborne, that's why we have to have payment ahead of time. So that's one of the biggest things that I deal with that really jerks my chain and really gets me out in left field. The next one is power. And man, we talk a lot about this on this channel, but I recently did a gig with a national band at a city park nice, huge, big pavilion, that sort of thing. When advancing the show, they told me we have, quote unquote, we have enough power for the Rolling Stones. Of course, anytime you tell me that, all that does is scream as to how little you know about how much power the Rolling Stones actually need. Because they did not. What they ended up having to do, and I made them go to the venue and send me pictures of what they had as far as power. I wanted to see the panel box. It was 2 hours away. I wasn't going to make a special trip for nothing to go down there and just make sure they're not lying to me, which they're never bold-faced lying to you. They just don't know what they don't know. These are people who regularly act like they know how to do our jobs, and they really don't. So it's up to us to be able to look into that crystal ball of booking and be able to get them to jump through the hoops we need them to jump through before we show up. So turns out they had 5 20-amp circuits. Well, I'm really not super cool with that. I mean, that's probably could have done it, but with a national band, I would much rather have at least one 50-amp 240, right there, so I can do that and then just run stage gear off those 20-amp circuits. That gives, because the band was using analog, tube amps and things like that, and a lot of old analog keyboards and that sort of stuff that takes power, So I'm trying to be a smart guy, and have more power than I need, more power than the band needs, and then we're all good. So they did go ahead and do that. They went ahead and had the city come out and install a 50-amp 240. Well, I get there, the plug was upside down in the box. Okay, it's not the end of the world. I cut the breaker, I pulled the plug out to flip it over. As soon as I pull the plug out, all the wires fall off the back of the plug. Now, this plug was installed 2 days ago, and the wires are already falling out of the back of the plug. So I had to reinstall the plug and get the wires tight the way they should be into the plug, put the receptacle back in the box in the orientation that I needed, and then move on with my life. You think that would be enough? Of course it's not enough. Whatever they have feeding that pavilion was not 50 amps. I had band members telling me they were in the green room, which was on the other side of the park, and when the opening band was on, every time they hit the kick drum, the lights were dimming in their building, which meant that our power was being drawn on the same leg as their power. That's not good. So what ended up happening is we have this national band that's looking for a huge impact, volume-wise and stuff like that, and we just barely had enough volume to be able to get the show, done. We were experiencing something we call brownout in the music business. Brownout is not a blackout because the power doesn't go off. It's a starving of power with all the gear. So the more we were trying to push the bass guitar or the kick drum, the less of it we were getting. That means there's not enough power on tap to provide the sound pressure we're requesting from the system. That's one of 1,000 different examples I could give you of just horrible, horrible power from people who were convinced they had enough power on site to do the Rolling Stones. Don't even get me started on the power in some of these dock bars we do up and down the Chesapeake Bay and Middle River and the Potomac River and all that. I mean, some of those places are systems that were built on top of systems that were built on top of systems, and I don't even know how they get past code. There's been times where I'm kind of like, this whole thing is ready to just catch on fire and burn down. One more final thing. I got several more here on the list, but we're starting to run out of time. I'm just going to give you one more thing that really jerks my chain. CLP Audio and Staging is a unapologetic Christian company. Trust me, we're not perfect. There's a lot of times on the job that my trailer park mouth gets the best of me. So I'm not always a great example of that, but we are Jesus-believing people. Most of our staff are Jesus-believing people, and we try to operate with integrity, if nothing else. The frustration we deal with in this business kicks the stupidity level so far up the chart that it's getting to a point nowadays where it's just really hard to even have a general conversation to advance a show without people getting butthurt. I'm going to give you an example of this. I got a phone call from a guy who wanted to do a Christian festival with a bunch of local praise and worship teams. super cool, man. It was 20 minutes from where I live at. I'm super stoked to do it. Love working Christian concerts whenever we can. Those are my people. Those are people who usually understand, how this business works. And I've worked with a bunch of national Christian acts. They typically really are super organized and have their stuff together. I always attribute it to sobriety because it's a Christian act. They're sober, This was not national level stuff. This was local church praise and worship teams, that were all coming together to raise some money for whatever the cause was, I forget. They called me, they booked a gig. I gave them a crazy good deal on it because it was close to home. Then even after that, gave them another $500 discount because we didn't have to do lighting because this thing was going to be over before dark. And they're setting pretty good on a number that I would probably never give to anybody else. But the guy that was booking the gig was an absolute sweetheart, was a super cool guy. He calls me the week before the show and says, hey, do you mind if I put you in a Facebook group so that you can communicate with the bands and get what you need from the bands? Sure, man, absolutely. Now, I'm extremely busy. I can't express that enough. Extremely busy. When I do these videos, it's everything I can do to get, 20 or 30 minutes on the phone without it vibrating and going absolutely bonkers, because that's what happens to me all day long. I am literally glued to my phone all day long with all the social content that I put up, the online content, stuff like this. It's just a lot. But I'm going to get on there. I'm thinking, hey, these guys, we're all on the same team here. This is a Christian thing. We're all kind of loving each other. It's going to be super cool. I get on there and very specifically say, this is what I need from you guys. I need a stage plot and input list was really the biggest thing. I know that some of you may not know what that is because, church praise and worship teams don't work in nightclubs and they're not national acts. They're just, regular people like you and me. So I said, here is 3 examples of what a stage plot and input list looks like. And I posted 3 stage plot / input lists from 3 bands that I had recently worked with. I even went as far as to say, here is a program you can download for free. It might have been Stage Plot Pro or something like that you can download for free on your phone or your tablet to create a stage plot. So I'm trying to give these guys all the information I can give them so they can I'm expecting responses of stage plots and input lists. In fact, I'd put my email address in there and said to, send the stage plots to my email. The reason I do that is because then I have an email from each band. And whatever information is specific to that band, all I have to do is go to that email and all that band's information's in that email. Instead of in a Facebook group where everything just kind of gets mushed together. And when you're as busy as I am and my staff is super busy, all my staff are working 2 and 3 jobs, That's just the way it works in this business. They're part-time with me. I can't do all this inside the Facebook group. So the very next message was someone from one of the worship teams with 3 paragraphs of what their band looks like on stage and how they're set up or what they require. Not a stage plot, not an input list. So practicing as much grace as I could. Now let's remember, this is through Messenger, Facebook Messenger. So you get no vocal tone, no body language, no nothing. It's just monophonic communication. We all understand that, at least those of us with 3 brain cells between our ears. I said, guys, this is exactly what I don't need because this is what will create confusion. Please just send me a stage plot and an input list. That's all I need. We'll figure out the rest of this stuff. If there's anything specific that you need with monitoring and stuff like that, put that in your email. That way I have all that information in your band's email. And when I forward that stuff to my staff, they know that this is how we do business. Well, the response I got was, the next morning I get a phone call from one band, by the way, out of that whole 4 or 5 praise and worship band setup. One band actually messaged me or emailed me a stage plot and input list and followed my directions perfectly. The rest of them apparently threw a conniption fit. Called the promoter. The promoter called me the next day, and he's like, "Dude," he goes, "I don't know what you did in this group, but everybody's mad at you now." And I'm like, "Why?" "Well, I mean, why would you talk to them that way?" And I'm like, "Talk to them how?" I even ended the response of the paragraph that I put, like, "This isn't what I need." I ended that paragraph with, "Guys, I'm saying this with a smile on my face and with a humble heart." And I put a little smiley emoji there. I tried to sugarcoat this the best I could. You know what ended up happening? They ended up firing me. Yeah. They fired me. For the first time in my entire life in the production business, someone called me and said, "No, these guys don't want to work with you now." So my response was as follows. I said, "You know what? This is exactly why, after spending 15 years inside of church production, I now work in the secular music scene. I go down the road and work with people who are, of all different types of religions or lack thereof, atheists and Buddhists and pagans. And I mean, you name it. I mean, it's a music business, a secular music business. And you know what? Those people treat me with nothing but love, admiration, and respect. I could have had this exact same conversation with them, and it would have been absolutely no problem. Now, it's not very often I get to work with, a Christian festival. Now we have a Christian festival here with a bunch of people who don't know me from Adam, have never met me, and because they can't give me the benefit of the doubt inside of a Facebook Messenger thread, they don't want to work with me now? You have any idea what that communicates to me as a Christian? This is the exact reason, and I got to be careful here because I'll get up on a soapbox because I got real problems with the church these days as it is. This only adds gasoline to that fire. Had these people just shut up and showed up and done what I asked them to do, this probably would have been one of the best shows they ever had the privilege to work with, because I know who they ended up hiring to go in there to cover this, and I know the reputation he has. It's not the same reputation we have. And that's okay. It's not my circus. It's not my monkey. It's not my problem at this stage of the game. But I got to be honest with you guys. It really hurt me. It really did. It is so sad. It really, really hurt me. My daughter was standing there next to me when I was talking to this guy on speakerphone. We were actually walking around the local park exercising. And I took the call while we were walking. And she's like, "I can't even believe that, Dad. Like, they don't even know who you are." And I'm like, "Yeah, apparently so. But you know what? I'm going to do the same thing Jesus did when he went to see the Gadarenes and solved their little problem with the demon-possessed man that was terrorizing their village. He freed the demon-possessed man. And you think the Gadarenes would have been, super stoked and happy and, all that and everything, that now they don't have this guy terrorizing their town anymore. Nope. They came right down to the shore where they were at and said, "Get back on your boat and get out of here. We don't want you here." Jesus didn't stand there and argue with them. He turned around, looked at the disciples, and he said, "Shake the dirt off your shoes, boys, because we're not even taking that with us when we leave this place." They got back on the boat and they left. I was thinking about that as this thing was going down, because it really, really hurt me. I was like, I can't believe this. Look, this has never happened to me. Look, I know I can be abrasive. I know I can be grumpy. I know there's times where, I can be a little tough to deal with. But anytime you want to change roles and come, walk in my shoes and deal with the things that I got to deal with and, worry whether or not you're going to get paid or worry whether or not, stuff's going to work or not going to work, and you spend all these hours in your shop trying to be the best, production company you can be and always be consistent. And one thing my clients will tell you is that I'm very consistent. And then these bunch of yahoos want to climb up on their religious high horse and get all butthurt because I don't know, I guess I didn't care bear them enough. So to reap hot ashes on their head, because the Bible tells me, I mean, I actually read the Bible, that's why I kind of call myself a Christian. I just don't go listen to whoever's behind the pulpit on Sunday morning. I actually read and study the Bible and try to live by those standards. The Bible says the way we deal with unkind people is to kill them with kindness. They had already paid me a non-refundable deposit on this event. I have never, in the 30-some years that I have been doing this, given that deposit back, ever. And without hesitation, I said, I'll tell you what, go ahead and hire whoever you want to hire, and I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to refund your deposit. So you can have that. Forget the hours that I have preparing for your gig. Forget, the hours I have in putting the contract together, the hours that I have in, 16 different phone calls, 23 emails, all the stuff that was that whole mess. I made absolutely nothing out of it. Nothing, not one thing. But I said, you know what? There you go. Go on and take your deposit back and have a nice day. Have a good event. The promoter knew that he had, really made me angry about this. I wasn't angry. I was hurt. He knew that he pissed me off. And he's like, well, I have another event that I'm getting ready to put together. And I stopped him. I said, no, I am not interested. You're never going to burn me a second time on something like this. You will be blacklisted and I will never work with you again. And if your name ever comes up in a circle of people, of production people looking to do business, I will be sure to tell them the experience that I had with you. I'm not going to throw mud. I'm just going to share the facts of how this went down and how dirty this was and how horrible of a representation that you people were for the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm ashamed for you. It was that bad. This is why we're grumpy. This is why we get frustrated. I told one of my guys this past week, I'm like, you know what? It's not even the thing right in front of me that I'm so mad about, that they screwed up or that is so completely asinine. It's how that one thing is going to affect the rest of the day. It's the 2 or 3, chess moves down the chessboard where I'm going to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone about how something didn't pan out the way they wanted it because they did something stupid, like not provide enough power or, park stuff in your way when you're trying to load into the place and it's impossible to get things where they need to go and you were late getting going because of their stupidity, not yours. We always show up 3, 4, 5, 6 hours ahead of the show, depending on how much gear we have to set up. We have a very strong reputation that way. But if you're a jackass, guess what? Go hire somebody else. I don't need the business. I don't need the headache. If you have a problem with paying me 5 days before the event, go hire my competition and screw them. Don't hire me. I don't need that drama in my life. Maybe you're the one guy who's going to get it right. Maybe you're the one guy that's going to do everything you say you're going to do. I'll take the chance in losing the business than taking the chance on the 8 out of 10 guys that I have seen screw me time after time after time after time. So you can put that in your pipe and smoke it. I have other stuff here I could have went through. I didn't even get to like church install nightmare stories. That's a whole nother crazy, psychotic, group of stories that I could tell you on how I've been screwed by the church doing installs. But we'll let that lay. I don't want to harp too hard on those that are trying to do what's right, even though some of these people just blatantly were trying to take advantage of me. I still don't want to bring a whole lot of negative light to the church. But let me tell you, it's very, very hard for someone like me to have any level of trust or any level of belief in what you say with all the stuff that I've been through. You created this. When I got into church production at 23, 24 years old, I was on fire for Jesus and all I wanted to do was help out. Literally gave hundreds of thousands of hours of my time for free helping churches. Looked at it from a ministry perspective for quite a while. And if I was lucky, I got to thank you. In many cases, I didn't even get that. So you want to know why a guy like me has the attitude he has? It's your fault. You're the one that created this. You're the one that screwed me on gigs. You're the one that didn't pay me. You're the one that changed the details of the contract 16 times before the show. You're the one who, made my life so difficult, it made it impossible for me to make a profit. At that point, why am I even doing it? So I've had to put boundaries and business protocol in place to protect myself from all you friggin' idiots who thinks guys like me are stupid and gonna just let you mow over us. It's not the way it goes. I'm way, way too busy for that nonsense. This year, it's October of 23. So far this year, I've turned down somewhere close to 200 shows that I couldn't get on my schedule. Tried intentionally to slow down this year to about 120, 125 shows. Right now, I'm at 187 shows for the year. That's if I book nothing else for the last couple months of the year. So tell me again why I should take a risk. Tell me again why I should come do your event for half of what I do this guy's event for. Well, in my world, that's unfair to him. He paid a premium price. Why shouldn't you? Crazy, crazy questions, huh? Thank you, guys. Thank you for your support. I hope this too long of a video helped you in some way. Maybe it can help you see our side of the industry in a different light. Please subscribe to the channel. Like it, share it, hit the notification bell, share it with your friends. Blow this thing up so we can keep this content coming to you. And by the way, the new website is up. Make sure you check out the new website, copaudio.com. It is super, super groovy. And as I announced last week, we are still working on the consultation packages. We should have that up and live maybe the latest second week of November. But we are super excited about that, and we have a laundry list of guys waiting in line to sign up for those services. So, yeah, it's going to be super, super cool stuff, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.